Hello everyone, and welcome back to Secrets Behind the Stars. I'm thrilled you're here with me, because today we're going to zoom in on a single, quiet beat that so many brushed past, yet it steers the entire course of a relationship. We're unpacking that split second when Demet, without meaning to, failed to notice something essential, something tied completely to Yaman's way of showing approval. It's that subtle, private kind of nod that doesn't roar in public, but anchors everything. If you love stories that reward close watching, that make you replay scenes to read the expressions and silences, this one is for you. Before we dive into the heart of it, a quick reminder: if you haven't subscribed to Secrets Behind the Stars, it's free, it supports the channel, and it guarantees you won't miss the deep dives and hidden threads we unravel every week. Today's exploration revolves around a simple question with complicated consequences. What exact detail did Demet overlook? And how did that ripple straight into Yaman's perception of her and of the moment? To make sense of it, we need to step back from the single frame and look at the larger picture, their rhythm as a couple, the pressures swirling around them, the way public images bleed into private dinners. Demet is luminous and open-hearted, but that vulnerability carries a history, expectations from family, whispers from the industry, the constant hum of commentary. She wants to feel backed, not just by the man standing with her, but by the constellation of people whose opinions still matter. In that search for certainty, she stares at the loud answers, the declarations, the slogans. But the proof she needed was never going to arrive with a drumroll. The night that matters most never looked explosive from the outside. It could pass as a standard family get-together in a well-loved Istanbul home. Fragrant dishes, laughter folded into formality, everyone trying their best to be civilized while old habits tug at the edges. Demet sits straighter than usual. She is trying to explain a decision she made, something honest and brave that still unnerves the older generation. She is poised, but you can sense that the air is thinner for her tonight. A few faces around the table are kind, a few are guarded, and a few look ready to revise history if it makes them feel safer. Demet seeks something clear from Yaman, a sign, a sentence, the simple relief of hearing his voice cut through the fog. She wants, in effect, an announcement: I approve of her. I stand with her. And Yaman does speak, though sparingly. If you know him, you know he is not the sort to wage speeches across a dinner table. He believes in solving fires without fanning them. What Demet misses is what happens in the spaces between his words. The glance that tightens when an unfair comment lands. The calm correction he slips into a relative story when it slides toward a cheap shot. The way his body shifts slightly so that his shoulder lines up with hers, he is there, literally intercepting the current. When the tension threatens to settle on Demet alone, he reroutes the conversation into safer waters, introducing a new topic with the practiced ease of someone who knows how to manage rooms and egos. He leans in just enough that she can feel his steadiness, but not so much that it turns into a dramatic showdown. For anyone watching closely, it's unmistakable: this is a shield. Demet, however, is searching for fireworks, for that overt declaration she can hold in her hands. Because she doesn't hear the words she has rehearsed in her mind, she reads the night as chilly. She takes in the suspicious looks more than the protective moves. She feels alone, and when people feel alone at a table like that, they start to brace. Her answers get sharper, her tone tightens. The more she armors up, the more the doubters think they're right to doubt. It's a feedback loop that feeds on itself, and it strains even what is solid between her and Yaman. Now, picture the same scene if she had recognized a different kind of signal. If Demet had read the hand that nudges a glass her way to slow a fraying conversation, the half-smile he directs at the person pressing too hard, the measured pause he installs after a barbed remark to stop it from spiraling, she would have felt something else entirely. She would have understood that Yaman was not neutral, that he was actively, artfully deflecting. She could have relaxed her shoulders and spoken from a more grounded place. Instead of defending herself against everyone, she would have felt accompanied. And that feeling changes everything: the pitch of your voice, the patience in your replies, the message you unintentionally broadcast to a room waiting to read you. From Yaman's perspective, this disconnect is its own kind of ache. He is a man who prefers proof to pronouncement. He has always been better at standing in front of a storm than announcing to the sky that he intends to. The glamour of his public life doesn't erase that truth. If anything, it makes him more careful at home. He doesn't want a family meal to become a stage. He measures his words, choosing not to feed the drama, and shows his loyalty through placement, through tone, through a quiet, stubborn refusal to let the night tip against Demet. When he realizes she hasn't felt protected by any of it, a frustration blooms that he doesn't quite know how to name. How did she miss that I was with her? Why does it have to be loud to count? Their misunderstanding isn't born from a lack of love, it's born from a mismatch in languages. Demet is asking for a banner. Yaman is giving her a fortress without announcing the bricks. One side thinks the other is underreacting. The other side thinks the first is demanding theatrics in a moment that requires finesse. Neither is wrong, and yet the gap between them grows if it isn't bridged in time. This is the kind of misalignment that writes entire arcs in the best dramas, not because it is explosive, but because it is so painfully human. Consider how easily this spills beyond the room. Families hold on to impressions, so do headlines and group chats and friends who mean well but add more noise. The next day, Demet replays the dinner and hears all the silences as condemnation. She carries the sting into her work, into her choices, into the little ways she protects herself from vulnerability. Yaman sees her retreat and reads it as a lack of trust in him, which rattles his calm. Together, they start to lose the easy rhythm that usually carries them through public scrutiny. It is stunning how quickly one missed cue can leak into a dozen different corners of a couple's life. The irony is that Yaman's approval was never in question that night. He was affirming her by taking the heat and redirecting it, by not allowing a pile-on, by communicating with a loyalty that rings louder in action than any speech. His style is strategic. He won't escalate a scene that doesn't need fireworks. He understands that the long game matters, that leaving a dinner without regrets can be a bigger victory than scoring a theatrical point that wins applause and makes scars. But Demet's history and the press of her fears had primed her to listen for a specific message, and because she didn't hear it, she misread the entire score. Had she caught the tune of that quiet defense, everything could have softened. She would have looked at Yaman and seen not a man withholding affirmation but a man refusing to let the evening paint her in a corner. She could have embraced the conversation with more grace, felt safer under that invisible umbrella, and reminded herself that approval is not always a headline, it is often a hand at your back guiding you through a crowded room. In that alternative version of the night, Demet's serenity might have impressed the skeptics. Her calm would have reframed her decision as considered rather than impulsive. And Yaman, seeing that his way of protecting had landed, would have felt seen rather than sidelined. There's another layer here. Nonverbal communication is its own grammar, and it takes practice to read it. In the hyperlit world where Demet and Yaman live, everything is often performed, archived, and judged. The temptation is to make every reassurance performative too. Yet the truth is that the most reliable signals are often intimate and offstage. The way Yaman placed himself in that room. The pace of his breathing when the conversation tightened, the protective stillness of his posture, all of it spelled approval, steady and sure. None of it was the sentence Demet wanted to hear. But together they formed a paragraph she could have trusted. Now imagine the dominoes if the missed signal hardens into habit. Demet, convinced she must fend for herself when pressure mounts, starts choosing self-preservation over collaboration in small ways that add up. She takes fewer risks in front of those who judged her, declines invitations that could have turned the narrative around, pulls back when she might have leaned in. Yaman, puzzled by the distance he didn't intend to create, compensates by becoming even more restrained around family, hoping not to spark another misreading. The more careful he becomes, the less she feels overtly held. It's a loop that feeds itself unless someone stops the wheel and names what's going wrong. This isn't about assigning blame. It's about clarity. Yaman's approval of Demet that night was strong, protective, and, in his own code, unmistakable. The detail Demet missed was the fact that approval doesn't always arrive dressed as an announcement. Sometimes it shows up as a shield that never asks for credit. Sometimes it's the conversation that never turns cruel because someone guided it away. Sometimes it's the steadying presence that says, without noise, I am with you, no matter who's watching. If this feels familiar, it's because many of us have lived versions of it, waiting for the big line and missing the quiet choreography happening on our behalf. What makes the moment between Demet and Yaman so captivating is how honestly it exposes that fault line. Her need for audible confirmation is not a flaw, it's a reasonable desire born of experience. His refusal to light a match in a room full of kindling is not indifference, it's wisdom learned the hard way. Their task, like any couple's, is to translate. To say, I hear the way you prefer to be loved, and to add, here's how I show love even when it doesn't sound the way you expect. When we look back at the dinner that set this wave in motion, the truth lands simply. The key detail was Yaman's silent, strategic defense of Demet against a tide of subtle criticism. It was there in the tilt of his chin, the patience of his replies, the way he refused to let anyone mischaracterize her decision. Demet, looking for the banner, missed the fortress. That absence of recognition made her feel unguarded, and that feeling sharpened her edges, which then seemed to justify the doubts in the room. In a painful twist, the very man working to protect her ended up watching the night turn into evidence against them both. So what happens next in the best version of this story? They talk. Not the kind of talk that relitigates the dinner minute by minute, but the kind that decodes a language. Demet can say, I needed to hear you say it. And Yaman can say, I said it with my body, with my choices, with my restraint, and I'll try to say it louder for you next time. Somewhere between the banner and the fortress is a bridge only they can build. And once it's built, the next gathering becomes easier, because they won't be asking each other to choose between theater and truth. They'll know how to translate the quiet into certainty. To wrap our analysis, let's distill the heart of it. The overlooked detail was not a line of dialogue but a sequence of gestures. Yaman's approval lived in his defense, unobtrusive, deliberate, unwavering. Demet, focused on vocal confirmation, didn't register the evidence. That lapse shifted her emotions, her choices, and the room's temperature. It's a lesson in how approval often functions in real life, less like a ceremony, more like a pattern of care. Notice the pattern, and the entire story reads differently. I hope this breakdown gave you a new lens for watching those pivotal scenes where the loudest truth is the quietest one. Tell me what you think. Did you catch the moment Yaman redirected the conversation? Did you notice the shift in Demet's posture when she stopped feeling backed? Drop your theories below. I read everything, and your insights always sharpen these deep dives. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, share it with someone who loves a layered love story, and make sure you're subscribed to Secrets Behind the Stars with notifications on so you don't miss what we unravel next. Thank you for spending your time here. Until the next episode, keep your eyes on the small moments. They're the ones that decide everything.